because I do believe I'm not a frequent churchgoer, but I'm married to a pastor, an ordained minister of the gospel, and I do believe in the power of prayers. I believe that it was the prayers of millions of people who saw us drowning in our own blood, self-inflicted wounds, that decided to get on your knees and pray. But I will give you a testimony before I go into the beef of the matter here today, about prayer. First, my 9-year-old daughter, who now lives in Houston, Texas, with her mother, called Wylie, asked my wife in February of 2003, and said, "Mommy, when will Daddy ever come home?" And my wife said, "Daughter, your daddy can only come home if Charles Taylor leaves Liberia or if he's dead." So my daughter did not say anything else. The next Sunday, she went to a huge church in Houston, which was filled with a multiracial congregation of more than 3,000 people, and asked the pastor to pray for her daddy to come home. She also added that, "I want you to pray for Taylor to leave Liberia this year, 2003, or to die." So the pastors were concerned for a 9-year-old kid to come up to a huge church like that and pray, and ask for that kind of prayer. They went up to my daughter and told her that we will not pray for Charles Taylor to die. What we will do is to pray, get on our knees now, for Charles Taylor to leave Liberia in 2003. And the more than 3,000 people got on their knees. I believe God answered their prayer 6 months later, when Taylor had to leave Liberia. And God has answered the prayers of so many other prayer warriors in this country. So this victory that brought us here to this juncture is not just the victory of the politicians and the armed factions that held arms. It was the victory of ordinary people who wanted to see Liberia become free and green again. My daughter, on the other hand, when she watched CNN and Taylor was getting on the plane, and she called me, I was in Accra at a peace conference, and she said, "Daddy, I see Charles Taylor getting on the plane to leave Liberia. Will you quit the war and come home?" And I said, "Yes, I will do that." And I promised my daughter there and then that never again would I be involved with any armed conflict. Having said that, let me talk a little bit today about Accra and Ghana and the sub-region. I want to express my thanks to the many brothers and sisters, the children of Nigeria, Ghana, Guinea, Mali, and the rest of the West African sub-region that came here to give their blood so that Liberia can be peaceful again. I believe it was their contribution that got us here, and we as a people must be grateful to them. I also want to sit here and thank the international community, especially the US and Great Britain, that apply enormous pressure at the United Nations to make sure that the sanctions were biting and the suffering of the Liberian people come to an end. I also want to thank those who have come and spoken before me, who had the nerves to come here So many people have discouraged me from coming to this TRC. And I told them, this is a piece of history that I don't want to miss. If my story remains in my stomach, probably when I die, my body will swell. So I'm here today to tell that story. The story of Joe Wylie is both a personal story and a national story. In the words of my editor, who is editing my book, Dr. Charles Allow of King's College, and when he said these words, they really brought tears to my eyes. You know, when I received the email, he said, the story of Joe Wylie, he said, and I quote, the story of Joe Wylie will show how the history of a man can also represent that of a country during an important phase of his life. I intend to narrate a story from deep inside the Mana River Basin conflict system, which might help us to rewrite our divided and badly distorted history. More than that, I hope my story will also help the leaders and policymakers of West Africa to resolve current conflicts and prevent future ones from happening in our region. I say this because as a conflict resolution practitioner and lecturer, I prefer to focus on those things that will unite us from now on instead of dwelling on those historical animosities that have divided this country for well over 100 years. Today, I sit before this commission and the Liberian nation and the sub-region. I am being tasked again to reflect on my recent past and my personal role in that past. But after so many learned intellectuals like Dr. Tipote and Famule and our leader and brother Alhaji Krumah, etc., have observed and commented on Liberia, I wonder what is it that I have to say which has not already been said. Let me remind everyone here that throughout history, drastic national illnesses have always required drastic medications. Our country, Liberia, in 1989 was afflicted. The country contracted what I prefer to call a militia virus. A virus which soon spread throughout the Mana River Basin. In this presentation, I will shed light on how Taylor's Tripoli-backed militias were defeated and all their weapons silenced. When the armed struggle was going on, too many people called. They said, Joe, you're not that type to engage in armed struggle. I told them, you know, Antello used to live in town. We were a vegetation that sent Antello in the forest. 5 years later, after the war ended, I think many Liberians now understand and appreciate the fact that men of Taylor's mindset leave good men like me with no other choice but to use decisive force to compel him to leave our country and people alone. As a result of my action and participation in the last 3 years of the struggle, the guns are now silent. And we are all sitting here today thinking and talking about rewriting our history. Many politicians and political experts always cite arbitrary rule and dictatorial tendencies foreign interference, poverty, and the scramble for natural resources has been immediately responsible for many of the wars in West Africa. Such arguments usually run the risk of confusing the remote historical causes of conflicts with the immediate occasions of the wars those conflicts engender. A topology of conflicts in the sub-region will show that conflicts in West Africa are varied, and their causes are complex and multifaceted, but they have one thing in common. They are generated, fueled by a combination of local, regional, and international, if you like, external actors and forces. Many questions come to mind when I make that statement. Why did France go to bed, for example? I am trying to establish the regional dimension of our war here. Why did France go to bed with an Arab country to destroy a very pro-Western country like Liberia? And why did the international community at some moment seem helpless in stopping France's activities in West Africa, using Burkina Faso and its children to visit terror and destruction upon La Côte d'Ivoire, as well as Liberia before La Côte d'Ivoire in the 90s. Is Liberia sitting on some lucrative mineral resources which are badly wanted by some big superpowers? Some of these questions must be answered in order to derive a useful starting point in putting the Liberian conflict into its proper historical perspective. Instead of doing a long memo of my 33 years of political participation, what I intend to do here today, I will give the TRC and its mandate one more year. I'm not going to start from 1979. I'm going to start from 1978, because that was the year I really did enter the turbulent and treacherous Liberian politics. In that year, many things happened, and as they happened, they were difficult to be interpreted. Before I get into my early political life, let me beg for the indulgence of the Commission for me to redefine some words and terms that are widely associated with this TRC hearing. The TRC itself is a small part of what we call in conflict studies transitional justice. And transitional justice is one of those words terms I want to define right here. It is usually applied to nations or failed states emerging out of dictatorship or conflict and finding their way towards peace and democracy. It has two main objectives. The first is to address the structural roots of many years of injustice which lie at the bottom of our conflict. Secondly, transitional justice must seek to restore the dignity of those who were victimized. Transitional justice, if it is guided properly, can lead to genuine reconciliation. Then what is reconciliation? For our brothers and sisters in the Atai shops and listening to me presently, I want to just give a very short definition of reconciliation. It is a process. It is not a one-strike deal. It's not a one-day event. Reconciliation is both a process and an objective of this TRC. But if we as a people once again mischievously use this process, the reconciliation process, the TRC process, to gather information from witnesses so that we can witch hunt our political opponents and perceived enemies, the possibility of our country relapsing into another war could become real. Now, the next word I want to define is conflict. What is conflict? Conflict is the motor of transformation or change. It is neither positive nor negative. It refers to the intrinsic contradictions in power relations, contradictions which manifest themselves in individual and group interactions with each other in the pursuit of limited resources or opportunities. However, conflict can be creatively transformed to ensure equity, progress, and harmony, or destructively transformed to engender acute insecurity. Human insecurity is driven by the negative transformation of structural factors through the exacerbation of conflict accelerators. The degeneration of conflict into open violence is often sparked by what we call conflict triggers. What are conflict triggers? Triggers refer to sudden events which affect the accelerators that spark a crisis, which could in turn lead to violent conflict, such as the sudden increase in the price of rice, the staple food of Liberia that sparked the rice riots in the country in 1979, which ultimately culminated into the bloody coup of 1980. Today, Mr. Chairman, there are two events in my life that shaped my young life into a high political direction. And all two events happened in 1978. The first one was the murder of a young Liberian man, 23 years old, of the Bella tribe by the Hajj brothers at a supermarket on Center Street. When Edward Berry was killed for a candy, that killing outraged the entire Liberian nation. And those of us who were on the political side took exception to the fact that a young man like us could get choked for just a candy in a supermarket. To add to my trauma about Edward Berry, the Chief Justice of Liberia at the time, peace be unto his soul, I have respect for dead people, Honorable Jimmy Pierce Sr., was kind of concerned, and he had interest in the Hajj brothers, manifested by the fact that his son, Jimmy Pierce Jr., who is my friend, was the lawyer of the Lebanese that choked Edward Berry to death. Now, let me remind you that in 1976, I joined the movement for justice in Africa. I could not have understood the death of Edward Berry from a proper perspective if I did not associate with Moja to have had the kind of political awareness that I had that drove me. And here I want to give thanks to Mr. Marcus Bwebe, James Yasia, and Robert Wiatu for recruiting me and making me part of the movement for justice in Africa, or liberation support movement, which was in the business of sensitizing the Liberian public opinion against the evils that apartheid and colonialism represented on the African continent. The second event that traumatized me was when I was in the 11th grade in 1978 in Charlotte Tower Memorial Academy. As a student, I wrote a poem to express my disgust about the fact that the President of the Republic was always calling us, the young people, his precious jewel. Every now and then, you know, the president was like, the young people of Liberia are my precious jewel. I believe President Talbot really meant what he said. I think President Talbot did more in 9 years than probably Todman did in 27. And so his dream for the young people was real, but it was not practicable under the circumstances that he inherited when he came to power. I was thrown out of my school because I wrote a piece of poem by Honorable Theophilus Sampon, who was the principal of the school I went to. And so I ran up the street to Ashmore, on this same Ashmore Street, to Tipote, Dr. Tipote, and told him, look, they threw me out of school for writing this precious jewel thing. I'm in trouble. Tipote immediately assigned the case to Dew Mason. And Dew Mason went to Sampon and said, look, this cannot happen. This kid is a young, upcoming writer, and if his writing was such that you disagree with your master's degree in English, it would be better for you, Theophilus Sampon, or anybody in the system, to write something like a rebuttal, but you cannot throw the young man out of school. He has to go back to school. However, after a long tussle, I was allowed to go back to school. And I want to thank Professor Dew Mason and Dr. Tipote again for not allowing Sampon's fear to throw me out of school. And for the benefit of the young people of this country who are still going through some of the same problems I was going through when I wrote the poem, I want to recite this poem. It's not a long poem. It's about 3 stanzas. I want to recite it. And I want to beg for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman. This poem was entitled, Am I a Precious Jewel? The question was to the President. And it was more sarcastic than satirical. And here it goes. When I have to quit the countryside to come to the city in search of education because no attention is paid to my village, in spite of the hot tax my people pay from year in to year out, may I ask one question? Am I a precious jewel? When education is not free and books, uniforms, and school fees are more than I can afford, and I live in New Crew Town or Old Road, and there is no bus to get me into school on time, may I ask you again, sir, is there anything precious about me? When I have to starve daily because I, a self-supporting student, cannot afford a bag of rice, when some of my starving brothers get jailed and killed because they have to steal to escape death from starvation, with you big shots saying or doing nothing about it, just building huge palaces and riding big cars while millions of bellies go empty, may I ask you a question, sir? Am I a precious jewel? This poem reflected the sentiment of many of the young people of my time, and because we were engaged in a non-violent struggle, I believe I took advantage of my calling as a young writer to give beef and meat to the plight and condition of the young people of my day. Mr. Chairman, let me say that a little after my poem, it was very interesting that people notice us when we are in a struggle as small children. one of those people that noticed me when I was in the struggle was J. Nicholas Podia. And before I get to Podia, let me say that the April 14 race riots met me in the street that day. The rice riot came about when the True Party or Mr. Turbo decided to erroneously, and I believe Turbo had a very good idea to grow country rice and give our people incentive by increasing the price of the bag of rice from $9 to $16. He had a good intention. But when he did that, the political opposition played on that because it affected the very livelihood of the people. And therefore, the rice demonstration took place. During that demonstration, I was with my classmate called Samuel Tua from Nimba. Later on that day, he got shot. The crowd in that demonstration was initially peaceful that morning as the demonstration got underway. People were singing and dancing, and the whole thing appeared like a festival. But not for long. The government joint security checkpoint and command was based at the Ministry of Defense, the present Ministry of Defense on Benson Street. And police in riot gears were over there. I believe if Turbo had control over the police forces, probably they would not have gone. But there was a big split within the True Party, with the liberal wing headed by the president, who wanted changes, who wanted to tolerate power and moja as opposition, because that was normal for any modern society. But the extreme right wing of the True Party controlled the police forces and the Justice Ministry. I believe Oliver Bright was Justice Minister then. Chesson had just left. And so the police went in full force to stop the illegal demonstrators. A crowd of almost 500,000 people was gathering. And as they went past by the Defense Ministry, Vanny Dempster, the police director then, opened fire on them. I didn't read it in the newspaper. I didn't hear it from anybody. I was there myself. I had a camera. I was taking pictures on that day. There was looting and a lot of people got killed on that day. Lebanese stores were looted. The barricades were still fresh in our minds. But the looting happened, the shooting went on because the True Party leadership lacked the foresight and proper leadership to have contained that demonstration by letting it happen. On that day, my political consciousness did not allow me to loot. A friend of mine looted a bottle of whiskey, and the only thing I got from that April 14 riot was 3 shots of whiskey that made me a little tipsy. So if I say I didn't loot, I'm lying. I looted. I looted 3 shots of whiskey. However, when I got in the 12th grade, the coup took place. But before the coup took place, I visited with J. Nicholas Podia in PHP. And Podia said, "Pikin, ain't you always selling newspaper for Tipote and Bago Matthews?" I said, "Yes, that's me, Joe Wylie." He said, "Okay. The struggle you have been struggling for long against these people, the words in you, these Congo people, it will soon be over." And I said, "How?" He said, "We'll overthrow the people in 7 days." So, you know, I thought it was one of those bluffs, you know, because you hear people getting drunk. We're drinking beer and the man was talking. I didn't take that to be anything. Believe me, 7 exact days, I hung on fire at the mansion. I was working at Hotel Africa then. And when the firing started, I woke up and I said, damn, this boy told me. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, for my Sunday school language. I said this boy told me that this thing was going to happen. The shooting went on for some time. And then in the morning, we the curious ones, ran to the mansion. The whole thing was over. I don't know how many people were killed. Few days later, I asked Sandro Moore, look, I want to be a press man. Give me a press card. So, when they were trying, detecting ministers, Sandro Moore and I were probably the only two journalists who were allowed into the Frank Sembene court. We got there. I believe the first thing that shocked me was there were no lawyers for the accused. And I didn't know then that, and when I grew up, I started asking, how could you try a bunch of civilians in a military court? You know, so I started, as a civil society, former civil society man, I started asking myself. However, when I look at the struggle in our country and some of the teachings that went on, that, you know, all the social theories, I said, but then the True Party was bound to be overthrown. And probably those who died were paying for the cumulative crimes of their successors. Of course, April 14 had just happened and more than 400 people were dead. This changed the history of our country. 13 million old men were killed. TRC got in power. Later on, the PRC got in power. Later on, the PRC itself started to disintegrate. And as it disintegrated, one of the men who predicted that the PRC was going to disintegrate on the first day of the coup was Dr. Zangba Liberty, who was a professor of history. He said the history of the lumpen proletariat. The lumpen proletariat in our left-wing studies are those people who owe no loyalty to any class. They are only after their own pocket, their alcohol, and their women. So wherever they come near power, they will first go after, when they consolidate, they will go after the so-called educated people in the country. They see them as enemies. So gentlemen, all this euphoria about native woman, born soldier, you guys will be surprised tomorrow. You are going to be victim of the same native woman's son who is a soldier. Dr. Liberty was dismissed. We thought that it was mere intellectual pessimism. So we continue with our celebration, and before we knew it, a few years later, the event that Councillor Verdier just referred to on the university campus took place. Dr. Amos Sawyer, Dr. George Clegg here were arrested and charged with attempting to overthrow the PRC. The students rose up, the faculty members rose up, and Dr. Mary Antoinette Brown Sherman rose up with them. She was summoned to the mansion, and we all were in that struggle with Dr. Sawyer. Alari Tugba, myself, we were members of what we used to call the Young Militant Brigade. We were stamping all these nomenclatures on ourselves without any basis, because in our frustration with our leadership, we wanted action, we wanted change, we wanted things to happen. So we went in the auditorium and started making speeches. The students were singing, and the president crossed the street into the Capitol building and gave that his famous move or be removed order to Grady Allison. I had just finished speaking, and Alaric Tuba was climbing the podium to speak when I heard gunshots within the compound of the university campus. I ran out, and then the glass up there on the TH building started breaking, coming down on me. And I said, oh my God, these guys are not scaring us, they're trying to kill us. We, the able-bodied guys, started to run. The women, the girls who were in their dormitory could not run. So when the soldiers got on campus, we know what happened. A lot of people were beaten up. I saw a girl whose name I cannot remember being bayoneted by a soldier right in front of the campus after I came by way of Jalatown. The girls were stuck in their own dormitory where some of the AFL soldiers went and raped them for 3 days. I was shocked. In April, we were in the street celebrating Native Woman Born Soldier. Now the Native woman's son has sent soldiers on our campus to beat us and kill us. I want to say here, Mr. Chairman, as we go through these things, we need to look ahead. Because some of the problems that we face in this country were not brought here by the Congo people, the so-called Congo people. And it is wrong for anyone to blanket all Congo people as oppressors. There are Congo people in this country, probably 90% of them, who are just as poor, if not poorer, than my father was up interior. In fact, in Sino, some of the Congo people were so poor, and the Sabo people used to call them Tabanyine Kui. Tabanyine is Lexington. They said the Lexington Kui is not a good Kui. Tabanyine Kui is the Kui. He said, because how can these people sell basket to live? If these people were so oppressive, if they were part of the oppressive ruling class, why were their children struggling to cross in Kinu to come to school? So these people were probably just like us. And when we go too much on this native Congo divide, we are likely to antagonize some of our best allies in the struggle for social justice and political freedom in this country. So when we are speaking here, I should admonish all of us Liberians that the 14-year crisis affected everybody regardless of your class, regardless of your status, regardless of your religion. I met CDB King Jr. in Abidjan after the war started. I will get to the war later. And CDB King Jr., he went on the street one day, he didn't press his shirt. I mean, the man's shirt was so rumpled, he was confused, he ran out of hotel bill. You know, and Tony King and I were together, we saw the man. He said, but what's wrong with King? The man is like a crazy man. So I went up to King. We talked. He said he wanted to go to Banga and tell Taylor, stop this nonsense. So we'll go home. I'm running out of hotel bill and everything is hard for me. Later on, I wrote something in which, an historical piece, in which I talk about his father, the late President CDB King, who sold Liberians to Spanish cocoa farmers in Funanipo for $5 a piece. The League of Nations, now United Nations, forced both King and his vice president to resign. So King asked me, Joe, you wrote that thing about my father? I said, yes, I did. He said, you know what? The way I'm broke now, if I had a chance, I would sell some of you native Liberians again to make some more money like my father did. I said, you gotta be joking. Thank God you don't have the chance to put us in a ship and send us to a far-off country. Sooner or later, we found ourselves in the same boat. The regime started chasing us. Both Congo, both former ruling class people, both former Moja and power people, we found ourselves being chased together. Then we came together. Something had to be done. Of course, when I decided finally to leave the country, and I was getting upset with the government because of several things that happened. Later on, I met one of my family. Dr. Family sent me a letter from Freetown and said, Joe, you have to come to Freetown. A few of my friends say, why is family calling you to Freetown? I said, well, I'm not a magician. If family wants to see me in Freetown, he's one of those people that I have admired. He's a real, true militant. He's a firebrand. And I have to go. And when I come back, I will tell you why he's calling me. He sent a plane ticket. I arrived in Freetown. Took the helicopter ride from Lungi. And he met me and took me to his house on Sack Street. The next thing I know, there was Coup sitting down. So I was already in the Zobush. I saw Coup. Coup was, after the Nima Raid in 1993, he fled, went to the States, and probably through one of my family's contact in Freetown, Coup came. So I knew something was in the making. Of course, there was another event that took place before I met Coup. I had been arrested in Monrovia before. And then Coup said, look, Joe, we have to move this guy. If he will allow the elections to go on, probably we don't need to do this. But I believe, though we not allow this election to be free and fair. I said, well, Chief, I have no choice. So, but he said, but you are not staying here, you are going back to Monrovia. I said, what? He said, you are going back. I said, yes, sir. Because Coup, the press had created this big image of the man. And so there was no way I could look in his eyes and say, Chief, I'm not going back to Monrovia. I said, okay, I'm going. What do you want me to do? He said, go to Monrovia, find out how are the people positioned in Monrovia in terms of, you know, where they keep car at night, you know, how things look. I said, but I don't have a military eye. How would I know which areas are sensitive, people are guiding? And so he said, well, ask some people. So I came in, and I had a friend with the last name, Wylie. I still don't remember his first name. So I put Wylie on a mission to find out what was going on. I'm sorry, it's not a TRC chairman. Wylie collected the information. It was a one-page information. Then I had in my possession another letter that family wrote me. But that letter was coded. And even within that code, there was another code with numbers. Those things were in my possession. When we arrived at the Soviet embassy, trying to get to the World Youth Festival to see a film. Sylvester Moses, Slomo Washington, the NSA chiefs at the time, arrested me with Disomo Piwu and my friend S. Bangbayesi Dwako. They personally arrested us. They took us to NSA, and then they started interviewing us separately. First person that came to interview me was Amayuru. You know, he came in, nice looking man, handsome. You know, he said, "Do you know why you are here?" I said, "No." He said, "If we charge you, if we say that you killed somebody, will you know?" I said, "I didn't kill anybody." He said, "But you are a spy." I said, "Oh, thank God, I'm a spy for the Soviets without the salary. Because it was preferable to me for them to have gotten to know that I was spying for the Russians than for them to connect me with Kuamba. So my case was treated as espionage man." He left. Next thing I looked, Grady Allison came. 2 o'clock in the night. They brought me out of my cell. I thought they were going to kill me. Because we heard the common stories and all these stories before. When they get you out of your cell at night in Liberia, it's likely that you may not come back to that cell. But I went in the place, and Amayuru was sitting there. Grady Allison walked in. And boy, I tell you, that man had a personality that would scare anybody. The eyes were too big. They were shining like locomotives looking at me. The highlights of a locomotive looking at me. The first thing he said was, "Oh, y'all didn't cuff the man? And y'all want me to see the man?" They said, "No, Chief, all the cops, we took them on the field for operation." He said, "No, but I can talk to the boy if you don't cuff him. The security people, Sylvester Moses told me, this boy is dangerous. He's working for the Russians." So I'm leaving. He got upset and left. He didn't say a word to me. He got upset, angry. But probably the security forces did not have sufficient money or hangers at the time to cuff me. So he left. The next day, they took us to Postaki. And man, the place was stank. I mean, I developed constipation straight. Because the stench was hanging in the air perpetually. You know, if you went in a stink place, you would smell it and go outside and get some fresh air. But the air you had was the stench. And there was no room to escape. The walls were so high. And I saw in the other cell, I heard Ezekiel Pajibo. I said, "Oh my God, they got all of us. Ezekiel Pajibo in jail, we are dead." So, the next day, a group of NSA guys came to my cell. He said, "You'll get Piwu, Dwako, and Joe Wylie out." For what? I don't know. It was around 11 o'clock in the day, I think 10, 11. That was July of '85. And the guys said we should go barefooted. I told them, "Look, let me wear my sneakers, man. I'm not running away." The other guys were so scared. I insisted to wear my sneakers. I told them I wasn't moving anywhere if I didn't wear my shoes. So I had a friend and a classmate in that group of NSA agents, and I will not call his name yet. Please permit me to hide his name. But his last name is Harris. And probably he was an Americo-Liberian friend. He said, "Gentlemen, if the man say he wants to wear his sneakers, what's the big deal? They told us to bring this man. They didn't say bring him without shoes or clothes." I said, "Oh, thank God for Harris." I put on my sneakers, and we went. They put me in one room. They put Piwu in one room. They put Dwaku in another room. One soldier, one NSA agent were assigned to my door on the second floor of the NSA building. So when I got in the room, the first thing I did as a real militant was to inspect the room for possibility of escape. And then when I inspected the room, I found out that there were no window bars. So I went and removed two of the glasses that were hanging to make room for my body to pass. But after I removed them, I closed the curtains back and came and opened the door. Popped my head outside, and the NSA guy said, "Go back inside, they're not ready for you yet." Probably they were coming to try me on TV like they did Flans Hamilton. When I went in the room, I said, "Joe, in any case, you are dead." Because before we went to the NSA, they are taking us to the mansion. And when Sylvester Moses told the president, Joe, that Joe Wylie is not a small boy, he's posing as a student. This man has in his possession the same code Hitler and Goebbels were using in the World War II theater of war in Europe. And those eyes almost popped out of their socket. What? The man was limited. So if you make that kind of comparison, he will think that I'm some kind of big trouble. So he called Duba. He said, "Duba, set up a tribunal for us to try this man." Some kind of court they wanted to try me in. And then the rest of the students, when they put make noise, we freed them. The meeting was over. So I went back in the room. I looked out the window, jumped on the little balcony of the NSC on the second floor, and I jumped down straight in the Romanian embassy yard. I got caught by the glass battle that was. I first came on the glass battle fence, and then I went down. 1 cent was not in my pocket. Right in front of the NSA building, the first taxi I saw coming, I jumped inside. I said, "The taxi driver myself will fight. But I'm not staying here because I don't have money." Jumped in the taxi, I told him, "Look, my sister selling Kobo right on Randall Street, carry me there." When I got there, my sister had not come to sell, it was not lunchtime. So the man who was selling gas, because Grady Allison had detained my sister for 7 days, she had just delivered a week before with a baby, but she was released after civil society people started crying out. And the gas seller said, "Your sister told me you were in deep trouble. What are you doing here?" I said, "My brother, they just freed me, but I don't have money to reach my sister." So he put his hand in the pocket and gave me $1. I jumped back in a taxi. I told the man, "Look, I'm not coming here. I'm going to Nuclear Town." He said, "But you told me Randall Street." I said, "Yeah, but I changed my mind. The same mother that told you Randall Street, the same mother saying Nuclear Town." So he said, "Okay, let's go." When we got on the bridge, the traffic, that was like 20 minutes after my escape. The traffic was like, I look at the whole thing, I said, "Look," I said to myself, if I escaped 20 minutes ago, the NSA people are on a run for me. I mean, I'm on a run, they are chasing me. I'm not going to sit in the traffic. I gave the taxi driver the whole $1 and jump out of the traffic. He said, "But come for your change, you're not going again." I said, "I'm not going." Straight into the People's Republic of West Point. I had a classroom teacher, friend there, went straight into his place. When he saw me, he was glad. He said, "Cuba?" He used to call me Cuba. He said, "Cuba?" I said, "Yes." He said, "You can stay here for 1 whole month. Nobody will see you. This is West Point." I said, "Thank you." I sent for my cousin who was in the army. And he came. And when he came, he brought me a gun. I said, "For what?" He said, "To protect yourself." I didn't know anything about guns. Of course, the single barrel, when I was 12 years old, my father used to show me how to shoot up interior. That's all I knew, but this was a pistol. He said because they are looking for you, when they find you, you will die. They even stop in embassy cars. So you have to defend yourself. I said, put it right under my pillow. The gun gave me some false sense of security. But I knew if I were confronted with two police officers trying to arrest me, they were going to kill me. So I didn't count too much on the gun. But I was counting on my survival, evasion, and escape tactics. So I was there with Zach. I contacted our other comrades, especially Tony Richardson, peace be unto his soul, and told them they should make preparation for me to escape. I stayed with Zach for 3 days in West Point, and when I wanted to leave, I told Zach, go and get me one hamburger at King Burger right near River City. As soon as he left, I left the house and took a taxi. I wanted to cut him off as a tail. I didn't want him to know where I was going. Because I want so that when anybody ever caught him, he would honestly say he didn't know where I was. I went straight to Sinko, to the house of Wester Uri, former NSA man and also a Congo man. I ran to a Congo man's house, native man chasing me and running to a Congo man's house. That's why I say we should be careful. Because in the process, we have made friends. Congo people have contributed to this nation, to the security. Not all Congo people are oppressors. The Americo-Liberianism, if I must repeat, is a mindset. Any Gribble Pele or crewman who gets his first degree and builds a house, steal a couple of dollars from the bureaucracy and put a dog to his fence can call himself Americo-Liberian. So I ran to Uri's house. Uri was not home. Uri's wife said, Tipla Uri, she said, Joe, this place is the place people will watch. Because Uri used to be NSA director, used to work for the NSA, they would check his house. So please go in the room. People are going to come to visit us. I went in the room. Somebody came to visit and the person couldn't leave. And I needed to go before darkness. I said, but what the man? Is he an agent or what? So finally I came out and told Tipla, I don't feel comfortable here. I have to go. She was glad that I was leaving. Well, at least I thank her today for not slamming her door in my face. I went out and I headed straight for Dr. Anthony Brown Sherman's house. Peace be unto her soul. And when she saw me, she said, Joe, the people are looking for you. I said, yes, ma'am. I just escaped. I want you to hide me. She took me straight into a master bedroom. And her husband, she went first and told her husband. Old man Sherman was shaking. And I didn't blame him. And the old lady came and said, Joe, you know this country is going through terrible times. I'm president of the university. You know when the Sawyer thing happened, we are loggerheads with the president. So please, if you stay here, it get dark small, then you can leave. I said, okay. So I stayed. Lunchtime, I remember she cooked beans. So she went into the living room. She didn't want the children to know that she was harboring me. So she went there, she cut in food for herself, and she brought the food in the room to me. And I ate. First time I ate a decent meal in so many days. She was supposed to be a Congo woman. That evening, when it got dark, I left her house. But before I left, she and her husband went on their knees and told me to get on my knees. And probably for the first time in 20 years, I decided to pray with the old lady and the old man. You know when you are in trouble, that when you know God. The old man prayed, the old lady prayed, and she gave me some money to help me. And she said, God be with you, my son. I headed straight for Capital Bypass. Went to one of my uncle's place, lay down there and slept. By 10 o'clock, I got on the bypass, took a taxi, straight to New Town, to near Richardson's house. By 4 that evening, Tony was ready with a taxi. He took me to Firestone, to the house of Mulba Barney, another comrade in the struggle. Mulba Barney kept me in a little cubicle that Firestone provided for him for 14 days. You know, I started wondering how Firestone could build such a house for a man with that kind of family. That was my first time coming into contact with Firestone reality, and I thought it was not good. And as a poet, I did 2 lines on Firestone. The great Republic of Firestone will continue to milk Liberia to the bone. But as I was falling asleep, I was fighting to leave the whole idea of Firestone and all that and worry about my own escape. I said, because Firestone will be here for a long time to come. I gotta go. So I tried to get myself from thinking about Firestone. I lay down there. 14 days later, Mulba Barney got a very beautiful girl, mulatto girl, put her in the front seat of the taxi, put me in the bike, and every gate we reached to, all the security people and the soldiers were looking at a beautiful girl in the front seat. They didn't care to know who was sitting in the bike. It was intentional, but it was risky. It was risky. So I got in Banga and I made my way to Lofa. When I got in Lofa, they said border was closed. Nobody crossing. The border closed. Coup happened, you know, something happened. They're looking for border closed. So there's a town called Yimenju town. And Yimenju in Crew means man. I said, but how can Yimenju town be all the way deep into Loma country like this? And you know, my grandmother is a Crew woman. That's the problem that my people here. I saw a guy on the car, he got friendly with me. He said, let's sleep here when the people open the border. Probably you will go. I said, okay. I stayed for 3 days. On the 3rd day, the owner of the place went in the bush and brought a big green snake. So I saw the snake and I said, well, what are the woman doing with the snake? That's the dinner, man. That's dinner. The guy told me, this is dinner. I said, what dinner? Where I came from in the Sapo forest, we ate so much meat, we never ate snake. You know, before I knew it, when the woman got through cooking, right on my plate was the snake, green snake. They didn't even take out the skin. I said, oh my God, my people told me not to eat snake. This struggle here will make us do plenty of things. But I decided to eat the snake. I had no other food. I ate the snake. And the next day I looked, my mouth started to peel. So I said, look, there might be something in this village. that will take care of this situation. I went to the next kinju shop, filled the whole glass with my agbeteshi, and I sent the kinju behind the snake. The snake started troubling me. It stopped troubling me altogether. Kinju neutralized everything. I fought my way and got to Freetown finally. And when I got there, Kuomba had taken a place in Lumley. I went to Kuomba, they were happy. He brought out a whiskey bottle. The next thing they told me, look, you are going for training 2 weeks from now. Training? Yes. What kind of training? Military training. Good. They shot at us April 14. They shot my friend Samuel Toa. All kinds of shooting took place on the university campus. Probably I need to do military training because this situation is getting more and more polarized in my country. So God wants me to train for a reason. I decided to go. But once you see the zoo bush, you go in the zoo bush and see the zoo, there was no way to tell the people, no, I don't want to train. So I decided to take advantage of it. The SSD training camp was somewhere on the Guinean border. They took us there. Fambule, Tonia King, Harry Nguyen, Tom Kamara. Tom Kamara really did well for us. He had a vehicle that we were using to move from place to place. But that was all he did. As soon as we reached the camp 1 week later, Archie Williams arrived from the States with $50,000. He gambled half of the money in Mami Yoko at the casino. Probably the people that gave him the money had no way of making, not to spend that money on himself. He came to support the coup process. But because I was just a recruit, I didn't know how money mattered when, who was bringing money. But I kept hearing that there were other people in Monrovia that were supporting the coup. So you had True Party people, Tony King and others, Archie Williams and all these people. You have Moja people. Probably you have some power people now in the same boat, training to come and overthrow Samuel Doe if the election went by. The more the personalities came, I got convinced that, oh my God, this is a lap fallback position. If lap does not win, then we might have to do the coup. The names I heard across the border were many, but prominent among them that were busy preparing the ground for the coming of Kuomba. Mr. James Holder, Mr. Robert Phillips, Harry Greaves, and Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf herself. They were working 24/7 to make sure the logistics are in place for the coming of Kuomba. I happen to be a foot soldier. So in the camp, Kuomba kept telling me something, oh Joe, I didn't know you were related to Western. You know, I said, my friend, I'm not so upset with Doe for the killing of Western. I'm not upset with you. I'm upset with Doe because of Nelson Doe, because he was my friend. And I thought that he was too young for him to be killed the way they killed him. That's the man who turned me against Doe. That was him. So Kuomba was very much at ease. But another fellow from Nimba called Mialo told me, Joe, don't mind that man. Because Mialo was a Western freak. was a follower of Wesley. He said, Joe, don't matter, man. All of them carry, man. So I said, but that's not what we hear. This is a new dispensation. Who came, Wesley? I don't care. We need to train and go. So finally, we got through our training after 4 months. And I must confess here that 4 months of military training, for the first time, for 4 straight months, I didn't touch a woman. And my head felt like it wanted to explode for some strange reason. Maybe my hormone levels were going up. And that was the part that was eating me up. When do I get back to normal life? But the military training, more than anything, I believe, sharpened my perception of life. It made me to turn into a precise man and discipline me a little bit. Because we have both Cuban training and American training. Jimmy Bia, Cooper Tier, and a few AFL officers, Major Emmanuel Dennis, who we call in Grebo Jirujaba Himiemo, that's his name, he always call himself. They train me in courtesy and discipline, Bennett drill, and anything that had to do with the American side of the training. The Cuban side of the training was done by the SSD people, and they trained me to be a sharpshooter. And I was a machine gun operator. I could disassemble, when the training ended, I could disassemble and assemble the AK-47 with my eyes closed. So I had a sense of security. And so after the training, I was like, when will we see action? You know, usually when soldier people train, after the training, they want to see action. So where's the real deal? So we went to the border. And on the night of the 11th of April, we sent an agent, Congo sent an agent in town to link up with James Hodder, Harry Greaves, and Robert Phillips that we were about to come. Fambula was with us. And I believe his testimony in that direction was truthful. But because I think one of the reasons the coup failed was because you had a mixture of former enemies who were very suspicious of each other. You had the True Party people who Famura didn't really like because of historical reasons. You had Famule who the former True Party people in the thing didn't like because of historical reasons. So in the middle were a few neutral people. When we got at the border, there was a conspiracy not to allow Famule to come in. The reason why they didn't want Famule to come in, they thought he was going to overshadow the whole game and take over and probably influence Kwamba. So they didn't want Famula there. I believe Famula didn't go into that detail. But you see, God works in a mysterious way. They were really saving his life because had he come with us, he was going to die. That was not a place for such a huge, fat guy who didn't take training with us. You know, so Famula said when we go, he had a contact with some embassy in Monrovia. If things didn't go down well, he would run in the embassy. Upon reflection, my friend, when gunfire, the embassy was going to close its doors. There was no guarantee that they were going to accept him. So I believe God went through the people that didn't like Famule to save his life. So he stayed, he gave me his rare neckerchief. He said, Joe, take this. But the information we have from Harry Greaves and the people that did the intelligence, on the other side of the border, Harry Greaves, James Hodder, and Robert Phillip, was that there are 56 soldiers at the border. And we need only 8 persons to clear the border before we can bring our own vehicles in to get the arms on the vehicle, because the Sierra Leonean government did not want their vehicle with their markings to come into Liberia. At that time, Shaka Stevens, president of Sierra Leone then, and Samuel Doe were not very good friends. I think there was a newspaper story that said that in Freetown, that said Doe beat Nancy and bust her one eye. So when Doe heard about the story, I don't know how they interpreted it to him, he closed his door. But then, on the other hand, somebody else told me something which I thought was a joke. He said also there was some social problem between Doe and Shaka Stevens. You know, Shaka Stevens was an old man, but he had some very young girlfriends. And you know, Sierra Leone is also famous, like Liberia, for having a lot of beautiful girls, you know, out there. It was that I don't know, Binta or Bintu, who came to Monrovia and she had an affair with Doe. And Shaka Stevens didn't like the fact that another president would play with his young wife. And I can also understand from that example the attitude of Reverend Buya's father, who removed his 7 wives from among the Crowns and the Grabos and went to live with the Mandingo people. Because woman trouble in our tradition can become a big trouble. Women are not simple people. For one woman in the Sapo tribe, sometimes 1,000 men will die. Way back. So women are very important. And I grew up to know that. So that might have been the reason why Shaka Stevens, even though there were treaties of non-aggression, but he allowed a rebel group to train, he armed them to come and attack another ECOWAS state. That night, as we dressed to come to the bridge, to clear the bridge, it was black, dark. It was dark, it wasn't funny. The guy, my friend from Nima, Say Miala, told me, Joe, we are 8 and the people are 56 at the border. Probably you and I got less than 24 hours to live. But the kind of training I had just done, I didn't let Say's joke to frighten me. Then I had my little bottle of some Sierra Leone rum they call Sasma. I said, Say, the thing you're talking could be true. Let me drink a little bit of Sasma. So probably when the bullet touched me, at least, you know, it will reduce the pain. So I took my Sasma and we started maneuvering towards the bridge. 8 of us. When we got on the bridge, there was a guy, an AFL soldier. We didn't see him. Well, immediately on the bridge, we passed by him, almost 8 of us. But Lawrence Wales of the AFL orchestra spotted a man behind us. We are all taking prone position. We had drawn our plan. The plan was drawn by Jimmy Bia himself. How to position ourselves, and divided our firing sectors into different sectors. Jimmy Bia, Coupotier was going to destroy the communication set at the immigration place. Go on the Monrovia Highway, take defensive position there, and make sure nobody comes to the bridge while we're trying to bust the lock to open the gate. 6 Say Mialo, Anthony Makui and myself were placed right on the bridge with Emmanuel Dennis and Charles Kamara. And there were a few Sierra Leonean guys that were recruited from Freetown. But all of us had on bulletproof vests. The family bought the bulletproof vests with reinforced steel plates. So Lawrence Wills spotted the AFL guy on the bridge. I want to go into detail on this particular issue because it has been a controversial thing. People have misquoted me and other people. Sometime during the propaganda war, even the death of Jimmy Bia was cited that I killed Jimmy Bia by Tom Oyu and all that. So I have to go into, and you have to bear with me, I got to go into the minute details of it. Because it was a firefight. So when Lawrence Wills and the AFL guys spotted each other, the M16 in the hands of the AFL guy was already advanced when he saw us coming. But he was too afraid to shoot. So he and Wills grabbed each other. One hand holding the rifle, and the other two hands holding their uniforms, and they were too tight, the rifles were too long for any of them to shoot each other. So they were fighting. As they were fighting, the AFL guy on the government side now, a gun went off, and two red hot bullets flew over Mialo and myself. I said, he said yes. I said, man, those guys will kill us. He said, I said, you don't see how they are fighting and they are shooting? If anybody stand now, you are dead. And as they fought among us, so nobody wanted to leave each other, the guns still started firing. So I said, no, these guys will not spoil this operation. I went in prone position and opened fire on two of them. They all went down. 3 rounds. But as a sharpshooter, I knew which side my comrade was. And the 3 rounds brought down the intended target. Plus Will. Then Will got up and said, Joe, that you shoot? I said, yeah, I shot them. He said, oh, thank God. I said, you hurt? He said, no. I said, okay. Then stay down. He went back down. Somebody started sawing. They brought a big truck. Robert Phillips was at the bridge. He sent the truck with one Mandingo boy in it. But when the first few shots went off, this Mandingo kid took off in the swamp like somebody running at the Olympics. The boy got scared and left us. He ran in the bush. So the car was without driver. Just then, another AFL soldier came. They started firing. Who to that gate? Who saw in the gate? And he might then said, yes, come, that's us. He said, no, what are you doing sawing again? What the truck doing at the gate? But that was the normal question anybody would ask. The soldier kept coming and making his threats. And for some strange reason, I just can't believe why he didn't fire the one tire on the car. He just needed 1 round to wreck the entire operation because that was our only car. But for some strange reason, he was firing in the air. Not knowing why the soldiers were firing in the air, Jimmy Bia, being a sound military man, thought that his area leaked. You know, in military structure, when you're on a battlefront leak, you got problems, you need help. So Jimmy, instead of firing at the guy when he might then gave the order, he started creeping behind the men who were threatening. We who were in prone position could not see them across the road. So when the man's voice got closer to me, and Emmanuel Dennis kept yelling, anybody who can see that man, shoot him. I believe Jimmy Bia should have shot the man. But apparently, maybe he wanted to catch the man with his hands or something. He was probably close to the man. And then my Joe Wylie anger kicked in. I said, why are the men ordering to? I took one of the hammer-like Chinese grenades from my pocket. They issue each person 2. I took 3 more. I said, this is a do or die mission. I don't know what's going to happen. So I could afford to use one. So as the man was speaking, threatening, I was watching for his voice, because you couldn't see anybody even 6 feet away from you. You would see them either as a shadow. I lobbed the grenade across the road to where the man's voice was, and it went off. The next thing I know, I saw someone in a soft position coming towards me. That's when I opened fire with 3 more rounds on his chest. He dropped, and immediately he woke up. So, you know, when you go into military battle, sometimes when they plan the way you plan it, it can't go like that. I was wondering in seconds, how would I shoot somebody in the chair? He just wake up. It escaped me that the man had on a bulletproof vest. So when the man woke up, Lauren Wales, who was standing a few feet on my side, said, oh, the man died. That's how Lauren Wales opened fire. The bullet hit Jimmy Bia in the neck, and Jimmy Bia dropped. At this time, we did not even know it was Jimmy Bia. We thought it was the guy who was making the noise, saying that you were going to spoil the car. So when we brought the flashlight, it was Jimmy. Emmanuel Dennis said, put the man in the car. I said, Dennis, most of these guys just ate with Jimmy a few hours ago. If you put Jimmy in the car, we go to maneuver, we really spoil their morale. So our best bet is, let's put him somewhere. When they think succeed tomorrow, we'll come back for him and give him a nice, decent burial. He said, yes, that's true, Joe. But I want to fire a few rounds in the air. I said, at what? Naturally, I started detecting to my commander, because I didn't think that it was necessary to shoot again. Bia was dead, and we had to take the truck across, put the ammo inside, and go and reach Monrovia before 5 o'clock to start this thing. So we saw the gate open, the car went, brought the arm, and Kwamba came and saw the first guy who died at the bridge, who and Lawrence Wells were fighting. He poked his head out of the window and said, Joe, the man died. I said, Chief, yeah, the man died. He said, amen. When he said amen, I was like, what? General, you said amen, 1 man died? How can the general say amen? So I said, oh, we're in trouble. So we packed our things and started going. When we got at Medina, I mean, all the gates were opening. I think James Holder and Harry Grease did a great job. Whether they bribed the people not to come or to open the gates were open. Nobody, any gate we reached was open. Probably the grenade sound drove everybody. When we got at Medina, Harry Greaves, Charles Kamara, a few officers went into the offices of Daewoo, the people that were building the road. Mr. Commissioner, I'm sorry, I'm talking from my memory. I'm not talking by this text anymore. So if I escape anything, you know that in the question and answer period, please let me know. I'm not trying to. And the men, all their cars were filled with gas and everything. The jeeps were ready. Because they were company cars. Before they parked the cars, they fueled them. Somebody gave us that information. And the Korean man wanted to be hesitant. I think one of the Sierra Leonean guys put a gun butt in his mouth. I think he was probably glad to give the keys. After that, we took more than 15 cars We developed ourselves into groups. Kupatia headed a group to the mansion. Charles Kamara, Harry Greaves was his driver. They were in a group to take over the radio station. James Hoder was driving Kuamba. And as we approached the AU gate, we saw a bunch of security people and soldiers, and probably they thought, excuse me, we were coming from Bombing Hills, from the headquarters of the 1st Battalion, because we were neatly dressed in camouflage that family bought from the States when he brought the bulletproof jackets. So they thought we were regular Liberian soldiers. So they allowed us to pass. But even if they had not allowed us to pass, we had enough firepower at that time to bulldoze our way through. But they allowed us to pass. We separated the groups. Charles Kamara went to the radio station through by way of Freeport to go to ERBC. Kupatia, myself, went towards Jalatan. We climbed the LU steps. I said, this is the same LU that the people fired me on. Now I'm going to stay LU here and open the first fire. I launched, from right on campus, I launched the first RPG bomb at the mansion. The thing turned around now. We were trying to democratize arms now. People fire at us when we were a student. Now I'm a student, 10 years in college, I'm back. And then the firing started. However, the only thing I know about the capture of the radio station was that, and Charles Kamara told me this, if you lie, I'm lying. Harry Greaves put on the high beams of the car he was driving, flashing in the eyes of to blind the eyes of the security people at the radio station. And the soldier asked, who is flashing that car light in our eyes? And someone in the car, probably Harry Greaves himself, said, oh, we missed our way. We're trying to find our way. Just as they were talking, the bomb went off. It took out the whole guard post. The security people at that place put down all their arms. And they said, we were here. We were here. They think we are fired just now, that Coup. We were here. That's how they took over the radio station. Kupatia and I continue advancing. Kupatia should have covered the entrance of the mansion around the information ministry. I was covering the other side to the foreign ministry way. The guy who had our logistics, the additional weapons to reload in case we run out, he came through Jalatown by St. Patrick's, and when he approached us, our commander panicked. Then they said, who bringing our car? And told about the guy, open fire at our own man. For the second time in the night, we fire at our own man. Then I told him, but we told that boy who was driving the car to come. It was another Mandingo boy that Hoder and Harry Greaves brought. Why you fired the boy? You were bringing the logistics. He said, oh, I didn't know, Joe. Before I knew, Kupatia left the side on the information ministry and started coming to me. So we pushed deep behind the mansion, Kupatia and myself, and I asked Kupatia, where is the arm room? You being in this army, where is the arm room? I said, the first thing you want to catch in this mansion is the arm room. He said, the thing way behind there. As we were going, some AFL officers from the executive mansion guard battalion came up and challenged us. That time it was going to 6, like that. And you know, in Liberia by 6 o'clock it's still a little dark. So we couldn't see each other, but we could see people in the distance. So we went in prone position. Sierra Leone boy called Formality and myself. behind the mansion. Kubotia stay in the bike. I told him, go and cover your assignment. This is my assignment. The left side of this place is my assignment. The right side is your assignment. And don't shoot behind me. Go on your assignment. So Cooper left. Then the executive Martian Guard battalion opened fire on us. Now they were ready to fight. And formality was laying by me and said, Joe? I said, yes. His head just went like that. He was there. And when he turned to me and said, Joe, I saw a hole in his face. The M16 round that these guys were firing, as we bent down, we had on steel helmets, but for some strange reason, a few inches below the steel helmet, the bullet hit formality. He dropped and died beside me. And the guys were coming towards me. And please, you can say I believe in superstition or not. I opened fire with that machine gun in prone position, and the guys were still walking towards me. They didn't stop. So they were in a distance, and I thought they were about to seize me bodily. I told the guy beside me, I said, give me that RPG bomb. This thing, maybe they got gun proof. One thing, they got bomb proof. And I'm not going to let nobody catch me tonight. It's not going to happen. I fired one RPG round, and the soldier's foot was the only thing I saw flying. So I had to retreat. When I retreated, we ran out of our first basic load. The car that was bringing our logistics got fired on. So I said, my man, what we doing? My Dennis. When I looked, Kubotia left me in the mansion and went down Wallace. The AFL officers that came in support of the coup, instead of helping us to consolidate the coup, the Liberian police picking job when the thing has not consolidated. They started grabbing job, going offices and sitting down and saying that I'm this one, I'm this, that, I'm that. They're taking job while the thing was still volatile. So I asked them, where is Kuamba? They say he's in the barrack. I said, what is he doing in the barracks? I thought James Hodder said he was going to be at a safe place in town instead of the barracks. Anybody could shoot him. So I ran to the barracks. Where I went, I met Kuamba, Tuba, some big AFL officers talking. So I called him on the side. I said, Chief, what are you doing here? Anybody can take a book shot at you. You are not safe. He said, okay, Joe. What do you want me to do? I said, there's a water tank right at the APC. Get inside. The guy in the APC. APC driver put off. A few guys from the AFL sat. And as we drove towards Benson Street, we saw a huge group of AFL people. Probably they are going to the arsenal to collect weapons. So, as we went through them, one of them saw and recognized Kuamba. Half of his body was in the APC. I turned my bike. All the other guys that came to join us were facing the back of the APC. And this guy opened fire with the entire 30 rounds in the M16. And I felt sounds on my bike. Back, back, back. Then I felt pain right on my butt. The guy who was facing the shooter, all in his groans, he must have taken more than 10 bullets. I put my hand on Kuamba's head and pressed him down into the APC. I'm still being a good soldier here trying to protect my chief. So the man who was hit, The guys who were hit, they started crying. And this man, there was one guy who was crying. I could not understand guilt. But this man was feeling so much pain. He was crying in his dialect to the point where I could not ignore his cries. He said, "Chief, take me to the hospital." Kuamba, when we got in front of civil defense, Kuamba got down and ran upstairs. I said, "Where is he going?" Called one or two of the Sierra Leone boys. I said, "Go behind the chief." So they went up. I told the APC to drive on Broad Street. The man went on Broad Street and stopped. I saw a lady coming in a car. Lebanese, Middle Eastern looking lady. You know, nicely dressed. One of the soldiers with me stopped the car. The woman politely got down. The guy told her, "We want the car to take somebody to the hospital." She said, "Okay." She got down. We put the wounded in there, sent them to JFK. The next car we saw coming was Paul Moba. Paul Moba came in a brand new Peugeot. So my bodyguard that day, he made himself my bodyguard. Another Sapo man called Apollo Jeswen. He said, "Chief, we taking the car from the man." I said, "Yeah." Then the other guy said, "But fire the man. The man won't get out of the car because Paul Moba tried to resist. This guy, this is my property, man. What are you guys doing? You came for door." So they wanted to shoot. And I said, "No, you can't shoot him. You want the car? Take the car. But this man is a civilian. You can't shoot him." Paul Moba got out of the car, gave us the key, and we drove straight to Grady Allison's house, the defense minister, who jailed my sister, who I delivered 1 week before, at NSA. I said, I gotta meet Grady Allison. I gotta rendezvous with him. I went to his house, and Grady Allison took a boat and fled. He was gone. Few soldiers were hanging around his house. His wife and yet I think 2 or 3 beautiful daughters were standing there. So I said, "Where is this Pajero key?" The defense minister car. Because for some strange reason, I didn't feel good riding Paul Moba car. Number 1, it was not big. Number 2, it was looted. But this one, the government car, the Pajero, the government car, we take it legitimate. So the girl who was holding the key, Allison's daughter, said, "No, I'm not giving Papa car key." So, Madam Water Allison, peace be unto her soul, said, "My child, the young man came here. He didn't fire a round. He didn't beat anybody. He didn't shoot any of us. He wouldn't ask for a government car. Get him any car key." She screamed at our daughter. So she brought the key. When she got closer to me, she said, "What's your name?" I said, "My name is Joe Wylie." She said, "Oh, you the Joe Wylie man?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Wow, I didn't know you were that handsome. I thought you were some kind of bad looking man." So I said, "I'm not here for that." I mean, I was probably like 26, 27 years old, and I was looking better than I'm looking now. You know, after toting the problem of your country for more than 20 years, I got gray over time, and probably I'm now suffering from premature old age. So she told me, "I didn't know you were that handsome." We got the car. Apollo Jeswen ran into Allison's room and got a brown grape. I think some money was in the grape. It wasn't much. Bust the grape open. He said, "Chief, I'm keeping the grape for you." Allah, you were not keeping the grape. I never saw that grape again. apologist when we were leaving Allison's house. No, first, when leaving Allison's house, then I stopped at Dr. Sawyer's house. You know, naively, thinking that he would embrace me. Sawyer was not there, according to the security, but I knew he was there. You know? So Kofa came out and said, the chief not here. I said, yeah, Kofa, get in the car. I asked for a glass of water and I drank. I said, my friend, take me, let me go see my daughter. My daughter was 1 month old, Tina. When I left, I went to Popo Beach. Just as I was holding my daughter, somebody came to me and said, Chief, Joe back in power. There was an announcement just now in the radio, on the radio in the car. So, leader, baby, let's go. So I kissed my daughter and gave her back to my brother and left. When I got in town, I thought Kuomba had gone back to the barracks. But I should have been killed during the coup if I were riding a different car. It's the minister's car that saved my life. As I enter the gate, I think around 2 or 3, going to 4, BBC gate, I saw all the soldiers, though was speaking on the air, and I was still looking for Kuomba. I'm this guy. I came from a political background where I have to be thorough and committed. I couldn't leave the street if I didn't see the chief. I went all the way to brigade, and everybody kept saluting me, thinking that it was Grady Allison that was coming in a jeep because they knew the jeep was the defense minister's jeep. But when I passed and they see my red neckerchief that family gave me, and the uniform I had on, they knew it was not Grady Allison, but it was late. I went straight through Motopool. I caught my own sin. I said, I saw enemies. I saw enemies looking at me. The only thing that saved me in the minister car. I drove straight on the bypass. And I told Apollo Jesuen, take this car and go. He said, Chi, where will you be? I said, look at this fool. I will show you where I'm going to be when they catch you, so you bring me there. But I said that in my heart. I said, I'm going to be, you see the house here, the other house are behind, and the other one behind. When he left, I went in the opposite direction across the road and went down the hole. Took off my uniform. The cabinet list. And most of the people in the cabinet had to tell me thank you. They didn't die because I had a list. Because the list of the military appointee was with Kuomba and his boys. But the cabinet list, I insisted that I'm the only civilian in Moyo. I came from the university. When it comes to civilian cabinet, let me hold the list here. On that list, I don't remember who all names were on that list now, but I know that the finance minister designate, if the coup had succeeded, was Madame Saliv. I was sitting president today. Not President Saliv, Madame Saliv at that time. I tore the list up and threw it in the Do River. Took my AK-47, put it on my pillow because I said, why ain't Hardy? When they come, the courtroom will be right in this room. I ain't going nowhere. I slept good. The very next day, my friend and myself walked politely across the bridge. They were searching cars, we were sucking oranges going, and we passed by all the checkpoints. And I went to a lady's house. They called the lady Mama. She was related to the Comans. Because if I went to my sister's house, I know that would be the first place the security would look. So I went to this lady's house. She said, don't go to your sister's house. Stay here. I stayed with her. The next day, I made my way straight towards Ghana'sville. The chief electrician at the executive mansion, I was dating his daughter. I went to his house. The old man saw me, he panicked. He said, my son, they're killing people, don't be in my house, my son, I beg you, they're killing people. So his wife said, so you want to tell me we have been knowing this boy forever? He come to our house, you want to put him outside because they're killing, let them kill all of us. But he ain't going nowhere. The woman put her foot down. The woman said this, Joe not living there, if we put him on the street, they will kill him. I can't live with that. Preferably let them come and kill all of us. After 2 days, I left. I went to Barnavage, I think LPRC fence somewhere there. And I slept in an outside bathroom because it was dark when I got there. I saw people coming, patrol cars. I was in an outside bathroom. The rain was beating me, but I wanted to survive. When day broke, I went straight to Wylie. Took a taxi straight to Anga. But when I got at the Salala gate, a friend of mine who and I went to Charlotte Turbo Memorial Academy was in the immigration. He spotted me. Because the man asked me, y'all get down. They were putting people down online. I got on the line. And when I reached this guy, he looked at me for long. Security officer. He said, what's your name, my friend? I said, my name is Steven. Steven who? Steven Sabi. He said, where are you from? You which tribe? I said, I'm Coup. He said, can you speak Coup? There was something suspicious about me. He said, can you speak Coup? I said, yes. So he spoke Coup, and I replied. He said, oh, okay, Coup, my friend. So, well, as I left the immigration checkpoint because the car was parked way off, entering the car, somebody stood beside a man who knew me as Stevie and said, Joe. I said, damn. I looked back, I recognized the guy. I just jumped straight in the car, and the car pulled off. I was thinking that they were going to chase me. But probably the officer was looking at the next car and probably was screening the other group of people. So they didn't come after me. I managed and got in Freetown. From Freetown, I stayed. Sylvester Moses sent agents because you know Sylvester Moses was one of those guys who grew up in Freetown. So he had agents there. One day, the beautiful-looking Liberian lingua franca speaking woman came to my place. Kumba had paid for this place, White Pole Building, Wilkinson Street. You know, you press button, the high water, everything was to do, man. Archie William then were bringing the money from America, so we were not living cheap places. You know, according to Super Rebel business, it's big business. The woman asked me, you people are Liberians? I said yes. You know, I didn't take it to be anything. The next thing I know, I got a call. Somebody came and said, you people got to vacate the premises. I said, why? He said the Liberian government claim that they have identified you guys, and if you and the Sierra Leone government has denied. But if you guys don't leave, they will grab you. They are coming to search 7 o'clock. We took all our things, went somewhere else, and I came back. I was always curious. I wanted to know who was coming to look for me. 7 o'clock sharp, Sylvester Moses with the Sierra Leone security came to our apartment. I saw them climbing upstairs, and I said, oh, it's Sylvester Moses. They think Syria, I gotta get out of Freetown. Somehow, family managed to find me a ticket, and because I didn't have any proper travel document, so I went through the back door and got a Sierra Leonean travel document as Joseph Kamara. So Joseph Kamara was going to Ghana. That's how I flew in December, I think December, early January, and went to Freetown. In Freetown, I met an array of people. No, in Ghana, I met an array of Liberians. Charles Taylor had just arrived. According to Agnes, he went through Mexico using a Cuban passport when he escaped jail. You know, Agnes Taylor and I went to LU together, so she tried to explain the story to me. And then, from Mexico, he flew to Paris. From Paris, he called Famule and said he wanted to come see Famule in Freetown. Famule told him, meet me in Accra. He went to Accra. So when I got in Accra, Charles Taylor, Jimmy Fromoya, Tom Kamara, no, Harry Nguyen wasn't there. Famule, they were at Star Hotel. Agnes called me. First time I'm meeting Charles Taylor, Agnes called me to come and eat because we were friends at LU. I went to eat and there was Charles Taylor. You know, normal guy. He said, but Joe, I was trying to find you and blah, blah, blah. But because I was from the progressive camp and the man was accused of stealing 900,000, I dismissed him. I said, the man is a thief. So, I mean, why you wanted to jump us anyway to steal another 900,000? You know, but I didn't take him to be anything serious. The man was hustling the Lebanese to eat. One day, while we were in Ghana, Agnes came to visit us. Probably she was hungry and probably she was pregnant or something, but she fainted. Took her to a restaurant, she ate, got in the car, carried her back to where she was. Soon after my arrival, about a month, Taylor got arrested. Probably you are fooling with too many people, you were talking plenty. He got arrested, he was jailed for 6 months. And finally, through the instrumentality of the Turbo family, in Abidjan, and probably A.B. Turbo's wife, Desiree, Blaise Campari, who was then vice president to Sankara, came to Ghana to intercede on behalf of Taylor for the Ghanaians to release him and deport him to Cote d'Ivoire. We stay in Ghana. Family left. Jimmy Fromoya, everybody left. I was in Ghana struggling. I had a daughter when the coup initially took place. I went to Ethiopia, you know, and I had a daughter over there by a beautiful Ethiopian girl that I was teaching English. Not a bad guy. No, this is true. This is a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It is not a good thing for us to come here and put stuff on the rock. If we could overcome our fear to shoot gun and put our lives on the line, I think before God and man today we should be ready and willing to talk to our fellow. This TRC is our own creation. We opted for it in Ghana. So I must speak the truth. She was probably 17 or 18 when she got pregnant. you know. So I said, I'm going to see my daughter. And when I saw my daughter came back, then Augusta Nyeswa contacted me. The same Augusta Nyeswa who died with your faculty in a car accident. He said, I'm going to Tripoli. I said, for what? He said, I'm a Green Book man. So he joined the Green Book Club, went to Tripoli, and met some Libyans. That's how, when he came back to Accra, he decided to introduce me to the Libyans in Accra. That was 1987. He introduced me to Americo-Liberians. Then the ambassador of the Libyan People's Bureau was Abdallah. And the second guy I met that day was Mohammed Talbi. He was the ambassador here probably until recently, or he's still here. They gave me $2,000. And he said they were recruiting people to go to Libya. I said, look, I'm interested. At that time, Famula and I have fallen out. So I was no longer listening to Famula. I was not interested in rhetoric. I wanted to come home. I was homesick. And anything we can do to get Doe out of power, I will go with it. So Nyeswa came and gave me $2,000. He said the Libyans want you to have this. And I said, oh, fine. I sent for 12 guys. I sent my friend Flomo Kokolo, otherwise known as Joe Dokes, with $1,800. He met with a couple of our comrades, talked to them, they signed on and came. And late November 1987, the first 12 guys I recruited to go to Tripoli to train took off in a big Libyan airplane. But what was strange about that era was that there was massive recruitment of West African nationals by the Libyans. February had happened in 1985 when not George Bush, Ronald Reagan bombed Tripoli and Benghazi, almost killed Gaddafi. So Gaddafi vowed to destabilize imperialist, so-called imperialist interests in West Africa and other places and started recruiting. And we just fell right into his plan. We were thinking that we're going to do our own thing. Gaddafi was building his anti-imperialist Green Army. What I didn't know at the time was Gaddafi and the Libyans were dealing with Taylor and dealing with me at the same time. I was in Accra, but we didn't know. The only person that was a connection was Putu Mayor. Putu Mayor was with me. So the guys flew to Tripoli. They went in a camp called, I think, Mataba, then to Tajura. In Tajura, Taylor's men were 24. He was still recruiting people through Danane and other places by way of Burkina Faso. I didn't have any more money to recruit any more people. So our whole process got stuck. But the Libyans said the guys I recruited should go and join Taylor since we all came from Liberia. And the guy said, look, and Famula was right. The guy said Taylor stole money from our country. He's a fugitive. We Liberians, we are the stepchild of America. We cannot have a president that cannot go to America. So we don't want that kind of man. We can't join him. The Libyans got upset. They bundled 9 of the 12 guys I sent onto a plane, seize their documents, and dump them at Accra Airport. When they arrived, it was around the early part of 1988. To be exact, January 3rd, they arrived from Tripoli. Big Libyan cargo plane. When they arrived, went to the hotel, Ghanaian official came, went to the Libyan embassy to give them their passports and other things. A Ghanaian official came by the name of Asasi Jima from the Rawlings government. Told us to meet with him, and when we met with him, put us in a bus, arrested all of us, and sent us to a police station close by. We were at the police station, I think, for 5 days. From there, they took us to Oshafo prison, where we ate something called zontoli, a kind of food I had never seen in Accra. Even if I had given it to my dog would refuse it. We all started getting sick. I lost weight until I was 100 pounds. I was only 100 pounds. From I think 160 to 180 pounds, I was like 100 pounds. So the Ghanaians decided to deport us. I think they were holding us because they wanted Taylor and his people to go through with the training. Putu Mayor, Sarah Sifos, and Paul Nimla stayed behind with them, and they went with the training, on with Taylor's training. But there was something that happened before the deportation of the men. One of the reasons we rejected the leadership of Taylor. Taylor's men were mainly recruited from Nimba. And on the 28th of December, 1988, they had a ritual in the camp. They killed a sheep and some chickens, and then decided to eat the raw meat without cooking it, to symbolize how they were going to be eating the crowns and the mandingos. So one of the guys who was with me sent a message and explained the whole thing. So I said, but I'm a Sapo man. There's no way I can go to kill crown people or kill any tribe for that matter, because I don't like that tribe. I'm a political person. We cannot tell the Libyans, we don't want to take training. We do not want to take their training. We don't want to be their friends. We don't want to operate with them. Let them send you out to Accra. That's how they send them to Accra. So Charles Taylor and his people did their ritual. We did the people came down from Tripoli and we got jailed. They needed travel documents for us to deport us. We didn't have travel documents. So they took us to the Liberia embassy, the Ghanaian authorities. And you know, Flomo Kokolo met with Famule about that time in Accra while we were in jail. And said, Famula, what are you doing? Joe Wylie, Makumongo, Seketoba, Pete Bamuluku, all these boys are in jail, they are our boys. What kind of vex you vex? You don't want to ask the people to free them. And the statement Famula made was, let them rot in jail. As for Joe Wylie, he think he can do whatever for himself. The other boys, I don't even know them. And when my friend Wylie came, he heard that, he cried. That was the only interaction Kokolo had with them. Upon reflection, Kokolo explained that story to me. I thought to mention that also. It's very important. That you recruited me from college to go into a coup. and we raged in exile. The coup failed. And Famula will make that kind of statement. From that moment on, I distanced myself from Famula. And we never had a very good relationship then. But he is the guy I still have a lot of respect for. He's my senior comrade. When they took us to the embassy, T-Boy Nelson was the ambassador. They said they wanted travel document for 9 Liberians. T-Boy Nelson said, well, we have to see them. We don't know whether they are citizens of Liberia or not. That's how they took us to the embassy. They were trying to lobby with the Ghanaians to give us to them to send us to Monrovia. The Ghanaians knew if they had sent us to Monrovia, we were going to get killed. So they decided to deport us. And the interesting thing about the deportation from Ghana was that they freed me on the 4th of July, America's Independence Day, and deported me on that same day to Abidjan, to Cote d'Ivoire, with the rest of the boys. So I started thinking, I said, maybe these people think we are imperialist agents. That's why on the anniversary of America, they would deport me on July 4th. So July 4th holds some significance for me. When we got in Abidjan, the first person I met with was Elizabeth Blunt of the BBC. We found a place in the Liberian community. I found my way and started teaching at an international language school. I became a BBC stringer. A stringer is the person who works per work done. The VOA guy came in. He was pretty new. He came from China, Max Ruston. And Elizabeth Blunt introduced me. He said, Joe has very good writing skills. You can also use him for background and all that. So I'm working with both institutions and getting some money and making my living in Abidjan. In exile, I could not go home because I was wanted, I think for $25,000 or $30,000 by door. Famula didn't care about me anymore. I was on my own. So we were there, we were in the Liberian community, and we heard that Taylor was coming to start his struggle. While working for the BBC though, I made friends with most of the people who were friendly with Taylor. 1990, 89, Taylor started the fight. I was already working with those people. So this day, the VOA guy said, can you get me some people from Taylor's camp who I can talk to? Because I haven't really, they've been talking about MPFL, I haven't talked to MPFL people. So I said, oh, I know the legal counsel for Charles Taylor in Banga. His name was James A.A. Pierre Jim, the lawyer for the Lebanese that killed Edward Berry. He was Taylor's legal counsel. So I got Ben Cooper and how do you call him, Jimmy Pierre Jr. to go see the VOA guy. When we entered the office, I went and sat down in the desk of the VOA chief himself, behind his desk. And he was sitting where the visitor was supposed to sit with those guys. So I had done a story about Air Afrique for the VOA. They wanted me to read it on the VOA myself with my own voice. But my voice was too Liberian and there was no series in my voice for me to read on the VOA. And I could not practice to speak like an American or any person. I could only speak my lingua franca as a Liberian like I'm doing now. So they said that voice was not good enough for me to do my own story. So they brought an Indian girl. She read a story. The story was about Air Afrique. Air Afrique rescue, plane needs rescue. You know, so Mark said, look, the story, the VOA people like the story, and they send you a check. So he took the envelope and gave it to me. Jimmy Pierre and Ben Cooper saw that. And when they left, after the conversation with Max, they said, Jimmy Pierre is convinced today. I met him 3 days ago, I think about a week ago. And he's still convinced that I am a CIA agent. Sylvester Moses called me a KGB agent. Now Jimmy Pierre was calling me a CIA agent. So probably I need to go become MI5 or Mozart or something. Jimmy Pierre must, no, it's not Jimmy Pierre. Taylor had his revolution going. Plenty of people started coming in exile. I went to the border when the Butua was hit. Elizabeth Blunt, RFI, and some other telex agency that send news around, APFN, they decided to send me to this place, Danane, to cover the story. So the first few days of reporting in 1990 about, I was reporting to Elizabeth Blunt, and Elizabeth Blunt was reporting to the BBC, reading my story I wrote. The story about the massacre of the Mandingo people in Kample in the early days of the coup was told to me by a few Mandingo kids who went for vacation, and when the parents got killed, you know, they fled into Abidjan, into Danane. So I stayed in Danane for a whole week covering the war. While I was in Danane, Omar Kolu, former bodyguard to Podia, and Taylor, who defected from Taylor, he and Nipe Mane, they went to Elizabeth Blunt's office and said, where is Joe? She said, I sent Joe to Danane to call the story. They called me and said, Joe. I said, what? They said, don't ever go in that bush to cover any story. I asked them why. They said, Taylor has a blacklist of all the Moja and Power people. You are on that list. Don't go there. I said, okay. I stayed in the hotel, left, came back. The RFI guys drove me back to Abidjan. So I was in Abidjan. In fact, when it was time for Taylor to launch his Christmas Eve revolution, he sent Yebe Dibon to me. He said, go tell Joe that he can't join us to go. Yebe Dibon came, he spent an hour with me trying to convince me to go and join Taylor to go attack Butu. I said, Yebe? She said, yes. I said, I'm a political activist. The people you are carrying to Liberia have vowed to eat Crown and Mandingo people when they get there. I will not be part of them. And when Taylor succeeds, don't give me a job. I'm not going. Yebe Dibon left. Taylor launched the revolution. And, you know, let me fast forward to talk about the time the interim government came. I'm not going to go to how the interim government came because you all know that story. That's not my story. When the interim government came to Monrovia, the NSA director at the time called James Quay came to Abidjan and contacted me through Nipe Mane and Omar Kolu and said, we want you to help us. I said, what do you want me to do? He said, Dr. Sawyer is in Monrovia as interim president. We want you to come to Monrovia. I said, okay. But I advised him and Lamini Warite that, look, Joe made a blunder with Hufwe. The interim government should not make a blunder with Hufwe. This man is a big mafia woman. Go and tell Sawyer and the interim government, let them bring the Liberian Peace Conference to Cote d'Ivoire and put the whole thing in Houphouet's hand. Probably this war will not last long because Houphouet might be able to prevail until or to stop the war. So after rejecting Yabba Dibon to come, I decided then I was going to come and beef up the interim government. I didn't want to fight a protracted war. James Square came back to Monrovia, told Sawyer and Omen Peter Johnson. Omen Peter Johnson came, Lamini Warity and I started preparing for the Yamoussoukro conference. That's how the conference went to Yamoussoukro. The interim government sent me some money to come and help with security. I was not given any official assignment because when I got in town, somebody said, let's assign Joe at the Ministry of Defense. Kesali was the Minister of Defense. Samukai, the present minister, was the deputy for operation. The Black Beret was being trained, but people in the inner circle of the Sawyer government did not want me to be part of the Black Beret for some strange reason. The next thing I know, when the Black Beret were trained, Sawyer received information from Samukai, which was a lie, that most of the Black Bearers were Sapo people from my tribe and they were loyal to me, and if Sawyer brought them to Monrovia, they would be giving me a fashion. So they didn't want me at the defense ministry. I waited for Sawyer to call me when he heard the information. He did not call me. So this morning he invited me for lunch. I was doing some work with the NSA, helping Lemuel Sherman to vet and train some of the new recruits into the NSA. I was not so freaked up about positions anyway, and I told Sawyer, I'm not interested in position, I just want to help. Do something that will stop all this that is going on. When I went to Sawyer to have, I think, breakfast, and I asked him, I said, Chief, he said, yes. I said, you and I have come a long way. When I was going to LU and I had no school fees, you defer my tuition with deferred payment to cut my tuition from your salary. If you heard anything like that from the Ministry of Defense or from Samukai, which is a lie, why didn't you call me? I mean, if I'm even politically naive and stupid, how can I overthrow an interim government in the face of 12,000 ECOMOD troops that were living in the building with you? I was on the first floor, you were on it. So because of that, I told Dr. Sawyer, I'm no longer interested. I'm leaving. I had a girlfriend in California who called me and said, Joe, I said, yes. She said, your life has been very turbulent. Death has missed you so many times. You don't think you need to come to the States and rest? I said, that makes sense. Send me a ticket, I don't have money. She said, okay. 4 days into Octopus, I was expecting the president of the IGNU to call me to say, look, War has entered Monrovia. What can you do? How can you help? He didn't. So I said no. Because if I stay in town, blackberry will become a fashion for me. According to Samukai, it was composed of a bunch of Sapo people and all that, and Southeasterners who were loyal to Joe Wylie. So if I stay in this town, this war swallow up this town, maybe somebody will shoot me. So I got to get out. My girlfriend sent me 2 tickets. One to fly on Air Ivoire to go to Abidjan, and the other on British Airways to go to London, and another ticket to Los Angeles. She sent the tickets, but there was a blackberry kid that came to me and told me something. He said, Chief, we've been having series of meetings, war is in town. But the people believe that as long as you are in town, they might not give us arms to help defend this city. So we beg you, we don't want to die without fighting. Please, go. I took my things to Springfield. I jumped on Air Ivoire. 1992, that was 1992, and I flew to America from Abidjan. I went to America, asked for political asylum, and it was granted. 1 year later, in 1993, I got married. One of the things that happened in 1990 that I don't want to skip was that in 1990, on August 1st, no, before August 1st, the MPFL had taken over Greenville. And they went to a nearby town called Taniwea Town. It was like 50 miles outside Greenville. And got a Sapo kid called Baba Solo. Baba Solo was told by one General Noriega, his real name is Moses K. Guan, that go in the villages, in the bushes, and tell the people of Joe Wylie that their son is with us. And they should not be afraid, they should come to town. When they come to town, nothing will happen to them. So Baba Solo went. Because when they got in the village, Pratt Farm, they didn't meet anybody there. So they decided now to go from, small villages in the bushes where the people were hiding, say Joe Wylie, everybody carried the word around. So all of the old folks, everybody started coming to town. Oh, they were somewhat happy. They say, well, if our son is with these people, they're not going to hurt us. Let's go to town. When they got in town, there was one guy who was suspicious. He said, I know Joe. If he were with these rebels, he will not let them enter our town first before himself. Joe is not with these guys. We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't go to town. Everybody dismissed him. Everybody became a doubting Thomas. So the people came to town. Noriega asked them, his men wanted to eat. They cooked. The women cooked. They ate, and they said, let's assemble on a road to meet Joe Wylie. He's coming from Greenville. That was August 1st, 1990. And when the people assembled, Noriega issued order and opened fire on them. They slaughtered almost 70 people on the spot in my town. That's my family town. My cousins, my uncles, everybody was wiped out in one day. Almost all the men in the town were killed. So this particular massacre for me has a very strange pattern. If you meet people in town and you decide to do by and the troops just get in town and open fire on people, that would have been different. But to send somebody in the bushes to come, it means that there was some real motive or intention to it. After they killed the people, Noriega said no one should bury them. They should stay there and remain rotten and get rotten. And if anybody bury my people, they will be shot. According to one of the survivors, Francis Wylie, my first cousin, was 8 months pregnant. I think 8 or 9 months pregnant. She was shot. She died. The baby in her womb fought for almost 3 hours before the baby was fighting in the lifeless body of this woman, and all they needed to do if they had a hospital was to rush her there and take the baby out using a doctor. There was no hospital. Nobody was allowed to touch them. The baby died in her mother's stomach. They took more than 15 women, young girls, to Taniwea town, from my town. They kept them there for 2 years as sex slaves. Joseph Wylie, my first cousin, daughter, gave birth to 2 children while she was in captivity. One of them died before she could escape 2 years later. The rest of the women, when they were leaving, they took with them to Nimba. As we speak, Mr. Commissioner, Chairman of the Commission, as we speak, some of my family people are still in captivity 18 to 20 years after the fact. They are not dead. Their names have been changed. They are women, they got children from their captors, and they are there. But probably my family people were not the only people that were taken there. We have had 2 peace processes in Liberia, 2 disarmament. But I have not seen anywhere where people in our transitional system try to give voice to the abducted people who remain in captivity today as we speak. If they did, and I'm not in the country, please tell me I stand corrected. The reason why I said that it didn't just happen in my town is because my sister was in Lofa Bridge, ran from Monrovia. She had a 9-year-old boy called Soweto. And when the MPFL attacked Lofa Bridge, Soweto was taken and turned to a child soldier. That was 1990. Soweto was taken to Nimba. His name was changed to Junior Dan. So he went as Junior Dan. For 30 years, we thought Soweto was dead. I named him Soweto when my sister gave birth because of the struggle. And one day, Soweto was sent to Danane for fuel oil. And then something spoke to him that your parents will be worried about you. He just suddenly started worrying about his mother and what the rest of the family people will be thinking 13 years after his captivity. So he went to the UNHCR people there and explained his story in Danane. and said, I want you to take me to Monrovia, to Mama. Of course, Soweto's father was also killed by the rebels. He was a police officer from the LMP. His name was David Swat. Soweto was brought to Monrovia and turned over to his mother. Soweto is in Monrovia with us today. But there are many others.
Thank you.
Silence, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'm very sorry.
We understand, Mr. Witness. Take your time.
Comrades, I'm very sorry. I'm not the hard guy you think I am. I have feelings, and my heart still bleeds for those who are in captivity today. Nobody has said anything about them, and I want to speak for them. We are not here to speak. Big boys are not supposed to cry. I can't help it. I'm sorry. And please, you newspaper people, don't put in your newspaper tomorrow that I will cry crocodile tears. I beg you. Yeah, they know, oh, Joe Wylie was crying crocodile tears. I know somebody who cried for 2 weeks before they came to the TRC. Yeah. So, Mr. Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, please, if this transitional process is concluded without us finding out and returning those captives to their homes and their families, it will not be fair. In 1993, General Noriega, who performed the same massacre, sent people to Pine Town. Before he did that, let me say this. He shot and killed Father Desmond Kwashi, a Ghanaian-born Catholic priest who was in the business of educating our young children. Then his troops went to Pine Town and shot my mother. My mother was half blind, and when the shooting started, everybody went in disarray. She ran towards the rebel who was shooting anything that shook. Killed my mother. Titikai. In that same year, my father, who had been hiding in the Sapo forest, Mr. Robert Wylie, decided to come to town to see what had happened. It was difficult for them to trace him and my family in the forest. When he got in town, all our houses were burned. His brother's house, Harry Wylie's house, was burned. So the first thought that came to him was he would go to the rebels and demand to leave his town free or they should kill him. But then again, he caught himself. He didn't want his wife and family to be looking for him. So he went back in the forest to let them know. My stepmother begged my father for 2 weeks not to go to the rebels to kill him. My father was this guy who never beat me one day. I never saw him get angry or anything. So for him to have taken a decision to walk to his own death, he was really hurt. He was tired. I was in Minnesota attending a house party thrown by Lily Mae Banks, dancing my tail off when Samson Kuya appeared at the party, uninvited. And Samson Kuya said, "Joe, I didn't see you for a long time. Where you been?" I said, "You know, we're in a struggle." Samson Kuya came to tell me about my father and my mother's death that day. I did not know that they had died. But I was so happy. I was dancing the man, being a Sapo man. You don't tell people death news when they are happy. And you don't tell people death news in the evening. You do it in the morning. So he sat there until 5 o'clock. And I said, "Something? You're not dancing. You're not trying to catch any of these girls. What are you doing here?" It was a whole bunch of girls. It was a girls' party that the girls invited me to. So he said, "No, I see you for a long time, so I just want to be with you." So I said, "Okay." We went home and he gave me the news that my father and my mother had been killed. I received their death news the same day. I don't think there are many people in this hall who have done that, who have had the experience that I'd have had to have your father and mother died and you get your death news the same day. There may be a few people. During Octopus, my younger brother, Henry Wylie, who was, I think he was a senior student at the university, trying to graduate to go to law school. My other brother, Maga, and City Boy were also killed by the IMPFL in Douala. I was still in the States. My wife, being a pastor, she prayed, and she was probably afraid that I would leave and come to Liberia when I heard the death news of my mother and father and 3 of my brothers. She counseled me, and you know, God has blessed me in a way. When I went to the States, this day I'm not a church going type. You know, I'm a Catholic, but I don't go to, and I decided to go to this church. My friend said, "Look, come to church, Joe, you ain't doing nothing. You don't get your green card yet, you can't work. Just come with me to church. So I hesitated. He called me until I left. The man was calling me to meet my wife. I didn't know. God was speaking. When I got there, the woman I got married to, Justina Francis Haskins, was the guest preacher of the day. And I want to ask God to forgive me. That while the woman was preaching this sermon, I was strategizing how to make up my wife. Because there was something that impressed me about her. I had not met a young black woman who was so versed with the Bible like she did. So after the church service, we exchanged numbers, we sat opposite each other, and I think she too was looking at me as some kind of spring chicken. So we struck a friendship. That's how I got married to her. But because she was a pastor, she helped me in my healing process. And she told me something. She said, Joe, you people can take guns and bombs and go to Liberia to fight Taylor. If God said Taylor will be there, he will remain there. But guess what? The day God gets ready for Taylor, you will be shocked how you will leave your country. So revenge belongs to God. You don't have to go to Liberia to join anything. I agree. My wife and I had 2 daughters. At about that time, General Roosevelt Johnson got sick in 1998 and came to the States. The people who came with Roosevelt Johnson, his bodyguard, Smith and Edwin Kine, told us that if Roosevelt Johnson returned to Monrovia, he will be attacked. Roosevelt Johnson just had a stroke. Peace be unto him. And he was coming back to Monrovia, but he had no bodyguard. Everybody was afraid to come with him. So I said, I will do like my father, who walked, disobeyed his family, and walked to the rebels and demanded his death. He said, free me or kill me. And they killed him. That's how they killed my father. He walked to them. So I said, if my father, who never got angry in my presence, can walk, I can take Roosevelt Johnson to Monrovia. Taylor killed me, that's it. But this man has to go. He's our last hope. He's the only resistance figure. Taylor has subdued everybody. At least that's how I saw it. So I have to go with him. At that same time, Mr. Charles Taylor was holding what they call a reconciliation conference in Monrovia. So I said, well, I will go with Roosevelt. Probably just on level here, if they are holding reconciliation, I don't think anything will happen. Roosevelt Johnson and I left the States. But Roosevelt Johnson was having series of meetings in America. All kinds of personalities. This time, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was careful. Even though she didn't go to the meeting with Roosevelt Johnson, but she sent a proxy, Madison Toba. And later on, I started hearing that the reason why Madison Toba was selected to come is if Roosevelt Johnson succeeded overthrowing Taylor, Madison Toba was supposed to take care of Roosevelt Johnson and probably bring another set of people in power. So he was embedded. And somebody in a meeting said, look, the forces in that town, we don't see how Madison can fit. Let Joe go. I was not in the meeting, but Supu was in that meeting. Labla Supu, the very lawyer for Charles Taylor, the man who was vice chairman for operation, who became vice chairman for operation for Laird later, and drove Taylor out, is now the lawyer for Taylor. Politics create strange bedfellows. So that's how I was selected to come. When we got in Nigeria, Timothy Shapiri, the post commander, was in Lagos. Roosevelt Johnson and I. So we proceeded to Abuja and stopped at the Nikon Hilton. Later on, we came back to a presidential lodge at Bar Beach in Lagos. Many of you who are refugees, you know Bar Beach. That's where we used to go in Lagos to look for all kinds of things. Shapiri went to Monrovia, so Roosevelt had to call Abdul Wan Mohammed. He said, if anything, I need somebody to take me to Monrovia, because if I go through the border, I'll be arrested and probably killed. So I need to go to Monrovia. Abdul Wan took us on a military plane in July of 98, and brought us to Freetown, where we met the great General Maxwell Kobe. Kobe, after being the ECOMOG Ground Task Force Commander in Monrovia, for more than a year was transferred to Freetown by Abacha. By 1998, I want this commission to know the situation that was prevailing in Sierra Leone. Kobe was struggling with the RUF because it was on the rise. The guns were silent in Liberia, but the RUF started going after territory it never attempted to capture in Sierra Leone. So the troops that were in Monrovia were transferred to Freetown. The RUF was experiencing what we call resurgence. Taylor threw money, arms, everything behind the RUF. Roosevelt Johnson and I pleaded. Roosevelt Johnson pleaded actually with Kobe and Shapiri and said that it is clear that if I go to Monrovia, Camp Johnson Road will be attacked. So please, give me small arms just to defend myself. Sorry. Shapiri said you have to come to Monrovia first. When you are in Monrovia, I'll provide the arms for you to defend yourself. Because our historians, our politicians have not succeeded in putting September 18 into its proper perspective. September 18 was prepared by the failure of the 1996, April 6 fracas in Monrovia. The militants of Roosevelt Johnson, the Ulimo J and LPC people that are occupying bomb mines and Kakata, they had nowhere to go after they were told to leave the barracks as a condition to end the conflict. So all of them trooped themselves alone in Camp Johnson. That is why we say in a peace process, even the failure of the DD can cause the failure of the entire process. Because you told these people to leave their camps in Kakata and other places, they were in the barracks, you told them to leave. Thousands of people, where did you expect them to go? Roosevelt Johnson was a hostage for them. So when we got on Camp Johnson Road, no, we didn't get on Camp Johnson Road. We were staying in Freetown. Roosevelt Johnson tried to ask for some arms. I just sat in a meeting quietly, and Abdul asked, but who is this fellow? He said, oh, he's one of our brothers. Shapiri refused to provide Roosevelt Johnson men with the arm. Finally, Abdul was leaving Monrovia. The assignment was over. And if he didn't bring Roosevelt Johnson at a certain time and he leave, the new guy was not inclined to do so. So what Abdul did was to arrange for the force commander's plane. The Echo Mark Force Commander, Shapiri's own plane, came to Freetown to pick up Roosevelt Johnson. The morning we were supposed to leave, General Kobe brought 3 uniforms to us. Roosevelt Johnson, Super Wu, and I. Super Wu started shaking. He said, I'm not going, boy. So Roosevelt was upset. But I came a long way with Super Wu. I said, no, Roosevelt, don't get upset. Super Wu did not take military training. Now, it's not everybody that got a mind that you and myself got. So leave Super Wu alone. If we even go and launch or a charter attack us and anything happens, Super Wu is supposed to be out to do political work. So leave him. So the one uniform remained in the room. General Johnson and I dressed, and we came to Monrovia as if we were some ECOMOG big delegation that was coming. And you want to know how I got in the country? When our plane arrived at Robertsville, there were tanks, there were GPMGs. I mean, the convoy was like, I said, whoa. We went straight across the Simple Bridge to Abdul house. He told the cook to take a vacation. So he didn't want the cook to come snitch. 3 days later, we surfaced on Camp Johnson Road. Taylor panic. Now, I was less than a mile from Taylor's mansion, and Taylor sent Peter Fineboy to Roosevelt Johnson. Why? How did you come to Monrovia? And why did you bring Joe Wylie with you? And I told Peter Fineboy, I don't owe Charles Taylor any explanation. If a man kills your mother, your father, and close to 70 men from your town, I don't want to come through his border. Because he already knows that I'm a doer. He will kill me. So go tell Charles Taylor, I'm in my home. I'm a blue Jew. We own this land. Nobody asked me, what am I doing here? So I just blasted Peter Fineboy. One day before September 18, I got a call from the executive mansion from Blamo Nelson, now Senator Nelson, and said he wanted to meet with me. I said, where? He said, any place of your choice. I said, well, then let it be at the Catholic Secretariat. So, the Catholic Secretariat sent 4 cars because I said I was taking with me some bodyguards in case they wanted to do stupidness so we can spot a thing right in the street. I will not die under the bed. Forget that. My father didn't bring me up like that. So the Catholic people, Kofi Woods, and they send the cars with EU markings. I took one of Roosevelt's cars. I was in radio contact with them. I went there. I had my 45 on my side. It was locked. It was loaded. This to me was war. It was just a slow motion war. So Blamo Nelson walked into Kofi Woods' office. The first thing he told me was, Joe, Taylor will arrest you. So I asked him where. Here in Monrovia? He said yes. I said, what else you got to tell me? Blamo Nelson said, how did you come to Monrovia? I said, I don't owe Taylor any explanation. I told Fanboy that. Is that what you call this meeting for? He said yes. I walked out of the room. Got in my car, we have a convoy straight back Camp Johnson Road. On September 18, around 5 o'clock, there was a buffer force stationed near Roosevelt Johnson's house of 22 men. We received a letter from ECOMOG withdrawing the troops. And the guy who withdrew the troops was probably the same guy who became the first defense minister of the restructured AFL. No, not defense minister, but chief of staff. The Nigerian fellow who became chief of staff. The one before this one, Yusuf. He was the one that withdrew the troops because he was ECOMOG Ground Task Force commander at the time. When Roosevelt Johnson saw the letter, he panicked. Few days before that, Bishop Francis and others are gone there to make Roosevelt Johnson go to a meeting in a mansion with Taylor, but you can't force people to have meeting. And we knew that he had set his men up at Telecom. Shafa, Norman, and others were waiting. The moment Roosevelt Johnson entered that mansion, they were going to attack Camp Johnson Road. And then what was supposed to happen was going to happen. So during that time, I told Bishop Francis, this man will not leave. Because if Taylor takes him to the mansion, he kills him, I'm dead. So Roosevelt Johnson himself became a hostage between the government and the Ulimo J forces. I told Prince Yo, don't allow Roosevelt Johnson to cross that gate. One of the Ulimo J boys dragged Roosevelt Johnson upstairs literally and knocked him before me. I said, where you going, nigga? Sorry. Mr. Chairman, if I'm the only thing between your lunch and this work, then you can stop me so that other people can have to do, but I'm ready to go. At least I cried for the first time in 30 years.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. We will take a break for 1 hour
Thank you.
and resume